Listen, they hid our history on purpose, but we're bringing the truth back, loud and clear.
Welcome to the part one of our series on the 100 Black inventions that changed the world. For too long, the media has ignored the achievements of Black inventors, making it seem like they weren't as smart or talented. In school, we learn about things like the light bulb, electricity, and other important discoveries from inventors like Thomas Edison, Nikola Tesla, Albert Einstein, and Benjamin Franklin. But we don't hear about the incredible inventions made by Black inventors. It's time to change that. Today we embark on a journey to unearth a legacy that has long been ignored, a series that unveils the untold stories of 100 Black inventions that changed the world. These Black inventors, whose names have been shrouded in darkness, refuse to let their history hold them back. Their intelligence and resilience propelled them forward, defying the barriers of slavery, discrimination, and racism. In this episode, we're going to share their stories and tell you about the amazing things they invented that changed our lives. Before we get right into the video, please smash the like button and subscribe to the channel so you can catch all the parts in this series and keep informed of our eye-opening Black narrative. Number 100, three-light traffic light. The three-light traffic signal we see today has greatly improved our safety on the roads, but very few people know that the traffic signal was inspired by the invention of a Black person. The person behind this brilliant invention was Garrett Morgan, an African-American businessman and inventor. He lived in Cleveland, Ohio, and was the first Black person in the city to own a car. In 1922, he witnessed an accident between a horse-drawn carriage and a car, which inspired him to find a way to prevent such accidents in the future. At that time, police officers were responsible for directing traffic, but it was difficult for drivers to see them, and their signals were limited to just stop and go. This made it hard for drivers to navigate through traffic. So Morgan came up with a new idea. He invented a traffic signal that had folding arms with signs that said stop and go. The signal would be placed on a post above the road, making it easier for drivers to see. He also added a third position where the signal could be raised halfway, indicating caution. This was like the modern yellow signal that we see today. To operate the signal, a traffic attendant would turn a crank, raising the post and showing the appropriate sign. If necessary, the attendant could stop all lanes by showing the stop sign. Morgan's invention was patented in 1923, and he sold the rights to General Electric for $40,000. Number 99, home security system. The 1960s were one of the most dangerous times in American history, and for a Black woman whose husband was always working at odd hours, staying alone in her home at night left Marie Van Britten Brown feeling pretty vulnerable. Unfortunately, their neighborhood had a high crime rate, and Marie was concerned about the slow response time of the police. In response to this, Marie came up with the first home security system when she was 40 years old. Initially, their invention consisted of 4 small windows, a movable camera, TV screens, and microphones. The cameras could move from one window to another. These cameras were connected to TV screens inside Marie's home. By using the TV screens, Marie could see who was at her door without actually having to be there physically or open the door. The microphones were also important as they allowed Marie to communicate with the person outside without having to face them directly or open the door. Marie Van Britten Brown's invention of the home security system has had a significant impact on the security systems we have today. Her innovative idea paved the way for further developments and improvements in security systems that are still used today. Number 98, folding bed. In 1885, African-American inventor Sarah Good would create one of the most famous inventions designed for maximum comfort. Her patented folding bed would inspire the modern-day Murphy bed. Being a furniture store owner, she saw a business opportunity and made an audacious move. When Sarah Good heard about the problem of limited space in Chicago apartments, she wanted to help. She invented a bed that could fold up and be hidden, similar to the Murphy bed we know today. It was like a cabinet that could turn into a desk, with spaces for writing supplies. Sarah's goal was to make the bed easy to lift and keep in place when folded, and to provide extra support in the middle when unfolded. In 1885, Sarah Good became one of the first African American women to get a patent for her invention of the folding bed, number 97, protective mailbox. In October 27, 1891, Philip B. Downing was granted a patent that changed the mail system forever. That patent was for a street letterbox, essentially the mailbox we see all around the country, where you can post a letter any time of day. In the early 1800s, U.S. citizens posted and received their mail via a post office. People would need to travel far distances to visit their local post office for their mailing needs, so there was a need for a better, more convenient solution. Downing designed the mailbox that we all recognize today, a metal box with 4 legs. This invention changed the need to go to the post office in order to mail a letter. It included a hinged door that kept bad weather such as rain and snow from damaging the mail, and also a safety feature making the mail secure until it is picked up by postal employees. The Downing letterbox patent became the basis of the letterbox we have today. Number 96, blood banks. It's impossible to determine how many hundreds of thousands of people would have lost their lives without the contributions of African-American inventor Dr. Charles Drew. This physician, researcher, and surgeon revolutionized the understanding of blood plasma, leading to the invention of blood banks. During World War II, there was a great need for blood transfusions due to the large number of casualties, but there were challenges in transporting and preserving blood for long periods. Recognizing this problem, Drew focused his research on finding a solution. He developed a method to store and preserve plasma, which is a vital component of blood, separately from whole blood. This allowed plasma to be stored for longer periods without losing its life-saving properties. He also came up with the idea of blood banking, which involves collecting, testing, and storing blood so it can be used for transfusions when needed. Drew's work was a game changer. It not only helped save many lives during the war, but also paved the way for advancements in blood transfusion techniques. His ideas and innovations laid the foundation for the modern blood banking system that we rely on today. Number 95, refrigerated trucks. In the world of modern transportation and logistics, refrigerated trucks play a vital role in ensuring the safe and efficient delivery of perishable goods. Behind this groundbreaking invention stands an extraordinary mind, that of Frederick McKinley Jones, an African-American inventor whose innovative spirit transformed the way we transport and preserve temperature-sensitive items. In the late 1930s, Jones was approached by Joseph A. Numero, an entrepreneur in the cinema industry. Numero needed a way to transport perishable items like food and medicine without them spoiling during long trips. Recognizing Jones's skills, Numero asked for his help. Jones took on the challenge and came up with an ingenious solution, a portable cooling system that could be added to existing trucks. This transformed ordinary trucks into refrigerated vehicles, allowing perishable goods to be transported over long distances while keeping them fresh. Jones's invention had a significant impact on various industries, including food, pharmaceuticals, and healthcare. It made global trade easier by enabling the transportation of perishable goods to faraway markets. Number 94, automatic elevator doors. On the 11th of October, 1887, a highly skilled barber, inventor, and businessman named Alexander Miles received a patent for a technology that would revolutionize the way we use high-rise buildings forever. His invention? Automatic elevator doors. Though a seemingly small milestone in the history of technology, his innovative design made the use of elevators infinitely easier and safer, earning him a spot in the National Inventors Hall of Fame. Whatever the reason, Alexander had identified just how dangerous the elevators of the 19th century were. As they had to be opened manually, either by an operator or the passengers themselves, people were often at risk of plummeting down the shaft with horrific injury. Miles's design included a flexible belt attached to the elevator cage, with drums positioned on it to indicate if the elevator had reached a floor. When this occurred, the doors would automatically open and close by means of levers and rollers. The influence of his elevator patent is still seen in modern designs, and the automatic opening and closing of elevator and elevator shaft doors have become a standard feature. Number 93, Super Soaker Summer just wouldn't be the same without Lonnie Johnson's invention. Johnson was an aerospace engineer for NASA who happened to invent the popular children's toy. In 1982, Air Force and NASA engineer Lonnie Johnson conceived of the idea of a pressurized water gun after shooting a powerful stream of water in his bathroom while performing experiments for a new type of refrigeration system. This experimentation, which resulted in Johnson shooting a stream of water across his bathroom into the tub, led directly to the development of the Power Drencher, the precursor to the Super Soaker. Number 92, tissue holder. Mary Beatrice Davidson Kenner, along with her sister, was a wizard of making your trip to the bathroom as pleasant as possible. They both invented a toilet tissue holder in the 1970s, which they share a patent on. This invention was created with the purpose of eliminating the problem of grasping the free end of a toilet paper roll, which happens when the free end of the paper is positioned tightly against the remainder of the roll. This invention helps by always keeping the toilet paper in an accessible position, making it more convenient to get a roll of paper right when you need it. Number 91, peanut butter. Generally, when people think of famous African American inventors, one of the first names that springs to mind is George Washington Carver. Perhaps most famously, Carver's inventions included the discovery of over 300 different uses for peanuts, such as making cooking oil, axle grease, and printer's ink. Carver was the first African American student accepted to Iowa State and quickly became a campus leader and excelling in botany and horticulture. After finishing his education, George Washington Carver was convinced by Booker T. Washington to serve as the Director of Agriculture at the upstart Tuskegee Institute. Though the job offered very little in terms of pay, Carver took the position and ran with it. It was there he devised his method of crop rotation. Through the system, crops flourished, but a large surplus of peanuts also developed. This led George Washington Carver to develop alternate uses for the peanut. Today, everyone and their dog can thank George Washington Carver for the invention of peanut butter. Number 90, laser phaco. Imagine living in a world ranging from hazy, clouded vision to that of total darkness for 30 years. Before 1985, that was the plight of those with cataracts who did not want to risk surgery with a mechanical grinder. As a noted ophthalmologist and famous black inventor, Dr. Patricia Bath dedicated her life to the treatment and prevention of visual impairments. Her personal belief that everyone has the right to sight led to her invention in 1985 of a specialized tool and procedure for the removal of cataracts. With the laser phaco probe and procedure, Dr. Bath increased the accuracy and results of cataract surgery, which had previously been performed manually with a mechanical grinder. With the laser phaco probe invention and the development of the procedure for its use, Dr. Bath helped restore the sight of several people who had been blinded by cataracts for up to 30 years. Number 89, automatic gear shift. Richard Spikes was a well-known inventor whose automatic transmission for the car gears and other automotive-related inventions transformed the transportation industry. Spikes invented the gear shift to help keep the gears constant for different speeds, which also helps people to drive up hills. In December 1932, Spikes received a patent for an automatic gear shift device based on automatic transmission for automobiles and other motor vehicles. Number 88, dustpan. The first dustpan was invented in 1858 by American inventor T. McNeil, for which he was granted a United States patent. However, it was Lloyd P. Ray's improvement that gave us the dustpan we all recognize today. The African-American inventor made improvements to the dustpan by the addition of a short wooden handle and a collection plate made of metal, and this invention was patented in 1897. The addition of a metal plate and a short wooden handle allowed sweepers to collect trash without getting their hands dirty. Due to the convenience it provided, Ray's invention quickly became a household staple. Number 87. Gold tee golf was totally a different sport before Dr. George Grant came along. Prior to the invention of the wooden tee at the turn of the 19th century, golfers made tees out of sand. Courses would supply each hole with a box of wet sand from which the golfer would fashion a raised mound using either his hands or a cone-shaped mold. In 1899, Boston dentist Dr. George Grant, frustrated with this tedious and messy process, invented a wooden golf tee. However, it wasn't until William Lowell, another dentist, invented the ready tee in the early 1920s that using a wooden tee became common practice. Number 86. Lawn sprinkler. African-American inventor Joseph H. Smith improved upon the lawn sprinkler by patenting the first rotary head lawn sprinkler in 1897 that sprayed water in two directions. In 1898, he was granted a second patent for modifications and improvements to his original design. His invention eliminated the need to drag a hose over the lawn and reposition it periodically to ensure a relatively even watering of the lawn. Number 85. Modern toilet. Thanks to Thomas Elkins, your bathroom breaks are as comfortable as ever. While Elkins didn't outright invent the modern toilet, his improvements to the chamber commode would inspire the mechanics of the modern toilet. His patented design came with several amenities, including a bureau, mirror, book rack, washstand, table, easy chair, and earth closet or chamber stool. Over the years, the toilet would go through several modifications to become the porcelain throne it is today. Number 84. Ringing mop. In 1893, Thomas W. Stewart would devise an invention that would make cleaning less of a back-breaking labor. The ringing mop we know today was inspired by his invention, which provided a way to care for the slate, stone, or marble floors that were a feature of the homes of the aristocracy, and later the middle classes. Thanks to his invention of a clamping device that could wring water out of the mop by using a lever, floor cleaning was not nearly the chore it once was. Number 83. Reversible stroller. Modern-day reversible strollers and baby carriages are the work of African-American inventor W. H. Richardson. Although the first baby carriage was invented in 1733 by William Kent for the Duke of Devonshire, its lavish design made it harder for everyday individuals to have access to them. However, Richardson patented a new type of baby carriage on June 18, 1889, that was more efficient and affordable. The design featured wheels that could turn 360 degrees in a smaller turning radius. The bassinet was also designed so it could face out or in towards the parent. Over a century later, his invention is still a popular choice among parents. Number 82. Biscuit cutter. By 1863, A.P. Ashbourne worked as a caterer, having amassed a respected following in Pennsylvania. He catered weddings and buffets of the wealthy elite in Philadelphia, and was selected as one of a handful of local caterers for the 1863 Emancipation celebration held in the city. While attending this event, Ashbourne noticed that the biscuits were simply hand-patted and lacked any real form. He began a decade-long process to create a device, a spring-loaded biscuit cutter, that would guarantee a uniform shape and size. His patented cutter had a board to load and unload biscuits easily. At the time, his invention brought convenience and accuracy to the flour-based food product. Number 81. Airplane propelling. While the Wright brothers designed and constructed the world's first practical fixed-pitch propeller, it was black inventors, among many others, that would improve the mechanics to be what it is today. In 1920, African-American inventor James Sloan Adams was granted a patent for a new and improved propelling means for airplanes, which utilized the stored-up energy of a spring to the fullest advantage for driving the airplane forward. This rounds up the part 1 of our series on the 100 black inventions that changed the world. From lawn sprinklers, home security systems, to traffic light signals, black individuals have continuously defied the odds and left an indelible mark on our world. It is time to celebrate their triumphs and acknowledge their countless inventions that have revolutionized our society. In the next part of this series, we will share even more audacious inventions, scientific breakthroughs, technological marvels, and groundbreaking discoveries done by black inventors. As always, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to our channel, and share our videos to let more people know the truth about blacks and to hear their own part of the narratives. Thanks for watching.
We're counting down 25 essential life lessons black parents taught at home in the 1970s, lessons that shaped responsibility, survival, and pride in ways many kids rarely experience today. From quiet resilience in tough times to unspoken rules built for protection and success, each entry reveals how daily routines, community expectations, and early independence formed the backbone of adulthood. Which forgotten lesson now feels most urgent? Let's begin with number 25. In the 1970s, childhood in black families was never about waiting for adulthood to arrive. It was about getting ready for it from the start. By age 12, many kids were already expected to help keep the household running, whether that meant watching younger siblings, cooking meals, or handling laundry without being asked twice. The economic reality was impossible to ignore. In 1975, black men in cities like Detroit and Chicago averaged just over 32 weeks of paid work a year, with unemployment rates double those of white men. That gap meant families needed every set of hands. Teenagers picked up part-time jobs after school, sometimes using their own paychecks to buy school supplies or help with groceries. One former Detroit student remembers earning a few dollars sweeping floors at the corner store, saving up for sneakers but also chipping in for the electric bill when times were tight. Early responsibility wasn't just a lesson, it was a necessity, shaping kids into adults before they ever left home. Packing up an entire bedroom in under 30 minutes wasn't unusual for kids in black families during the 1970s. Moving was a part of life, sometimes for better jobs, sometimes to escape rising rents, or just to find a safer block. Census records show the average black family relocated nearly twice per decade between 1970 and 1980, often with little warning. Children learned to fold clothes fast, wrap up breakables, and keep track of what mattered most. One former Chicago resident remembers her mother calling out, "We're leaving by noon," and the kids racing to box up toys, school books, and church shoes before lunch. Flexibility wasn't just a nice trait, it was a survival skill. New schools, new neighbors, new routines. Kids adapted quickly, figuring out bus routes, playground rules, and which adults to trust. The ability to adjust on the fly, to make any place feel like home, became second nature. That kind of resilience was built one hurried move at a time. Praise wasn't handed out for doing what you were supposed to do. In many black households during the 1970s, finishing your chores, making your bed, or coming home on time didn't earn a pat on the back. It was simply expected. Oral history tapes from the era tell the story in numbers. Out of 25 chores logged at one family's kitchen table, only 3 drew any words of praise. That's just 12%. The lesson was clear. Responsibility was its own reward. Parents believed that too much celebration for basic tasks could weaken a child's inner drive. Instead, kids learned to take pride in doing the right thing, even when no one was watching. This approach built discipline and self-motivation, a sharp contrast to today's world of participation trophies and reward apps. In that time, privileges had to be earned, and the real satisfaction came from knowing you had done your part, not from waiting for applause. Waiting was a way of life for black children in the 1970s. Instant rewards were rare, and patience was a skill everyone had to practice. In many families, saving for something special, like a new television, meant dropping a few dollars into a jar every week, watching the total slowly grow. One family ledger from 1976 shows $2 set aside each Saturday, stretching over 24 weeks before the goal was reached. Kids learned to count the weeks, not the days, and to find pride in the discipline of waiting. Some households kept a patience jar on the mantle, filled with coins and slips of paper, each deposit a reminder that good things took time. This ritual wasn't just about money, it was a lesson in self-control and hope. The long road to a reward taught children how to handle scarcity, plan ahead, and savor what they finally received. In a world where every dollar mattered, patience was a daily exercise, not just a virtue. Family reputation meant everything in black communities during the 1970s. Children carried their last name like a badge, knowing that every action, good or bad, reflected on everyone at home. A 1978 neighborhood honor survey in Baltimore ranked long-standing families at the top, with a 4.3 out of 5 rating for upholding respect and responsibility. Stories of grandparents who never shamed the family name were passed down as both warning and inspiration. At church, in school, and even at the corner store, a child's manners and effort became a reflection of their entire household. Parents reminded kids that their behavior could either open doors or close them, not just for themselves, but for siblings and cousins too. This sense of collective identity was more than pride. It was a form of social capital. A respected family name could mean help in hard times, trust from neighbors, and a seat at the table when decisions were made. Pride in family wasn't just personal, it was the foundation for belonging and opportunity. In 1975, Black parents understood that childhood wasn't a shield from reality, it was a training ground for it. The world outside the front door could be unpredictable, even dangerous. FBI uniform crime reports from that year put violent crime at 45 incidents per 10,000 people, and families in cities like Philadelphia, Detroit, and Baltimore felt those numbers in their bones. Kids learned to recognize the sound of sirens before they could spell emergency. They overheard grown folks talking about layoffs, police stops, and neighbors who'd run into trouble. Parents didn't sugarcoat the facts. They wanted their children to know what they might face and how to survive it. Survival meant staying alert, keeping your head down when needed, and understanding that the world wasn't always fair. These lessons weren't meant to scare, but to prepare. By the time a child hit their teenage years, they could read a room, sense when something was off, and knew how to carry themselves with caution and confidence. That mindset wasn't optional. It was the difference between safety and risk. Teachers, church leaders, and police officers stood at the top of the authority ladder for Black families in the 1970s. Parents drilled their children on how to answer questions from adults in power. Speak clearly, keep your eyes respectful, and never raise your voice. This wasn't just about manners, it was about safety. In 1975, police stopped data from cities like Philadelphia and Chicago showed Black youth were stopped by officers at nearly 3 times the rate of their white peers. Parents believed that showing deference, yes sir, no ma'am, could be the difference between a warning and an arrest. Stories circulated about boys who mouthed off and ended up in handcuffs, while those who kept their heads down made it home. The logic was simple. Compliance wasn't surrender, it was a shield. At school, if a teacher called home, parents almost always sided with the staff. Back in authority, even when it felt unfair, was seen as a way to keep children out of deeper trouble. Obedience wasn't about blind trust. It was a hard-learned strategy for moving safely through a world that often looked for reasons not to give Black children the benefit of the doubt. Privileges in Black families during the 1970s were never automatic. They were earned, guarded, and sometimes lost in a heartbeat. Freedom to go out on Friday nights, stay over at a friend's house, or even use the family phone came with invisible strings attached. One slip, missing a chore, talking back, or coming home late could mean an immediate curfew. Family notebooks from the era show that the average teenager had their Friday night privileges revoked at least twice a year. For some, it happened even more often. Parents kept careful track, jotting down infractions in the margins and tallying up lost chances. The message was clear. Trust was currency, and it had to be maintained. Earning back a privilege meant proving yourself all over again, one good decision at a time. This system of conditional freedom taught kids that nothing was guaranteed. Autonomy was a reward for responsibility, and every bit of freedom had to be matched by accountability. In that world, trust wasn't just given, it was built, tested, and rebuilt week after week. Knowing when to speak up and when to stay quiet was a lesson woven into everyday life for Black children in the 1970s. Some families even practiced what they called the silent exit drill 3 times a year, a kind of homegrown training where kids had to leave a room or even the house without a word, just on a parent's signal. The message was clear. Not every moment called for your voice. In church, at a neighbor's home, or when adults were talking business, children learned to read the room and hold their tongues. Oral interviews from the era recall parents enforcing a hush rule. A single look could mean silence, no questions asked. This wasn't just about obedience, it was about safety and social awareness. Kids who mastered this skill could sense tension, avoid trouble, and pick up on cues that might not be spoken out loud. These drills and unspoken rules sharpened judgment, linking the respect for authority learned at home to the street smarts needed outside. Cold winters in the 1970s taught Black children how to handle discomfort without complaint. When the oil crisis hit, families in cities like Cleveland and Detroit sometimes went as long as 45 days with barely any heat, rationing every drop of oil to stretch the utility bill. Children bundled up in layers, 2 pairs of socks, sweaters over pajamas, just to make it through breakfast. Complaints about cold hands or drafty bedrooms rarely found a sympathetic ear. Parents would say, "Put on another sweater," and that was the end of it. The expectation was clear. Life wasn't always comfortable, but you could learn to manage. Enduring the chill wasn't just about saving money, it was about building toughness. These lessons carried over into every part of life. Whether it was waiting for the bus in the rain or eating leftovers for a third night, children learned that resilience was a daily practice. Discomfort was temporary, but the strength it built lasted far longer. On a typical Saturday afternoon in the 1970s, a kid could get checked by 4 different households before making it to the end of the block. Neighbors watched from porches, windows, and stoops, each one ready to step in if a child stepped out of line. If someone was caught skipping school, mouthing off, or breaking a window, the news traveled fast, often reaching home before the child did. Block Association minutes from West Philadelphia in 1975 recorded as many as 4 separate reports for a single incident, each neighbor phoning in their version. This wasn't about nosiness, it was a system of shared responsibility. Every adult had the right to correct, and every child knew they answered to more than just their parents. The message was clear. Your actions mattered to everyone, not just your own family. Elders told stories about how back in their day, a child's reputation could open doors or close them for the whole household. Accountability wasn't just a rule, it was the glue that held the community together. Grandparents, great aunts, and uncles were more than just visitors in Black families during the 1970s. They were living archives. Oral tradition was the main curriculum, and lessons came wrapped in stories about survival, migration, and dignity. A 1977 family survey from Atlanta found that, on average, children visited their elders at least twice a week, whether for Sunday dinner or just to sit and listen. These visits weren't only about company, they were about passing down a map of how to move through the world. One grandmother, who had traveled north during the Great Migration, would trace her journey on a faded road atlas, showing her grandchildren every city she'd stopped in and every lesson learned along the way. Elders taught what textbooks left out: how to stretch a dollar, how to stand tall under pressure, and how to read a room when safety depended on it. Their stories were a resource, sometimes the most valuable one a child could have. Every scrap of food, every worn-out shirt, every penny mattered in Black households during the 1970s. The memory of scarcity shaped daily routines. Nothing was ever thrown away without a second thought. Families kept careful track of what came in and what went out. Pantry logs from the time show that leftovers were rarely wasted. Cabbage from Sunday dinner might reappear as soup by Wednesday, and stale bread became bread pudding or stuffing. Nationally, less than 5% of food in the average Black household went uneaten, a stark contrast to the nearly 30% wasted in America overall. Children learned early that asking for seconds meant finishing what was already on their plate. Clothes were patched, socks darned, and hand-me-downs passed from sibling to sibling until the fabric gave out. Gratitude was part of the lesson. Kids were reminded that what they had, someone else might be praying for. This approach to frugality laid the groundwork for practical skills, teaching children to fix, mend, and make do long before buying new was an option. Pressed shirts, polished shoes, and neatly combed hair were more than just family traditions in Black households during the 1970s. They were a form of armor. Parents taught their children that how you walked out the door shaped how the world treated you. A 1976 study on police interactions in Chicago found that black youth dressed in clean, well-kept clothes were 22% less likely to be stopped by officers than their peers. This wasn't about vanity. In an era when assumptions could turn dangerous, appearance became a practical shield. Children learned to check hems, wipe dust from shoes, and keep collars straight, knowing that every detail sent a message. Elders insisted, carry yourself with dignity, because looking sharp was a way to claim respect before a word was spoken. These habits didn't just protect against unfair scrutiny, they built confidence too. The lesson ran deep. How you presented yourself outside the home could open doors, keep you safe, and remind the world you mattered. Fixing things around the house wasn't a weekend project, it was a part of growing up in black families during the 1970s. Children learned how to use a wrench before they ever touched a calculator. Maintenance logs from the era show that, on average, families tackled at least 3 home repairs a month, whether it was tightening leaky faucets, rewiring a lamp, or getting an old radio to play again. Parents treated these jobs as apprenticeships. A child might be handed a screwdriver and asked to figure out why the kitchen drawer stuck, or to help patch a rip in the living room chair. Skills were passed down one task at a time, with patience and high expectations. Each repair was a lesson in resourcefulness. If something broke, you learned how it worked and tried to fix it before thinking about replacement. This hands-on training wasn't just about saving money, it taught self-reliance and built quiet confidence. By the time a kid reached their teens, they could handle a toolbox as easily as a textbook, ready for whatever life threw at them. Sunday mornings in the 1970s meant families lined up at church doors a full 10 minutes before service, coats buttoned and shoes shining. In black households, punctuality was more than a habit, it was a measure of respect. Church usher logs from Atlanta and Detroit show that families were recorded as present, not just on time, but early, week after week. Being late to church, school, or a family event wasn't just frowned upon, it was seen as a sign you didn't value the people waiting on you. At home, clocks ticked in hallways and kitchens, and parents reminded kids, if you're not early, you're late. Even a small slip, a missed bus, a slow start meant you had to explain yourself. A 1977 study of youth choir attendance found that the average member was late less than twice a year. Time management wasn't just about keeping a schedule, it was about showing character, honoring commitments, and holding yourself to a standard that everyone could count on. Dinner tables in black families during the 1970s often ran on a simple rule: children listened first, spoke later. It wasn't just about manners, it was a training ground for reading the world. Family dinner transcripts from the era reveal that, in a typical 30-minute meal, kids averaged fewer than 3 direct questions to adults. Most of the time, they absorbed the rhythm of conversation, catching lessons about work, money, and community by paying close attention to what was said and what wasn't. Elders swapped stories, debated news, and settled family business while children watched and learned. These silent seats at the table taught more than any lecture could. By observing, kids picked up how to read a room, when to hold back, and how to catch the meaning behind a look or a pause. In that silence, social skills took root, skills that would serve them in school, on the job, and in every room they would ever enter. Homework in black families during the 1970s wasn't just a routine, it was a non-negotiable part of daily life. Parents enforced a strict expectation. Schoolwork came before play, chores, or anything else. Even in households where parents worked long shifts or had limited formal education, the message was clear: education was the ticket forward. Kids finished their assignments at the kitchen table, sometimes with little more than a pencil stub and a few sheets of lined paper. Despite the lack of private tutors or fancy supplies, completion rates surged. Teachers in urban schools reported that nearly every student turned in their homework, a testament to the discipline drilled at home. One Atlanta principal recalled, "If a child didn't bring their work, we knew something serious had happened." In neighborhoods where resources were thin, effort mattered more than tools. The drive to finish schoolwork ran deep, fueled by parents who believed that education could open doors that hard work alone could not. That mindset built a quiet resilience, one that carried kids through tough days and uncertain futures. Street smarts weren't just a phrase in black neighborhoods during the 1970s, they were a daily practice. Kids were taught to scan their surroundings everywhere they went, whether walking to school or playing on the next block. Parents didn't leave safety to chance. In some families, children walked the same route to the store with an adult, then repeated it alone, learning which corners to avoid and which neighbors to greet. 2 times a month, many households ran what they called danger spot drills. Parents would point out alleyways, abandoned lots, or busy intersections, asking kids to spot the risks and explain what they'd do if trouble started. Block watch programs kept lists of safe houses, and children memorized which doors to knock on if they needed help. These lessons weren't about fear, they were about readiness. Being able to sense when a situation felt off, knowing how to change direction, and remembering faces on the block became second nature. This constant vigilance wasn't just a rule, it was a habit that kept kids one step ahead of danger. Consequences came fast and clear in black households during the 1970s. If a child left a bike outside and it disappeared, there was no trip to the store for a replacement. That was it. The lesson was lost, not a lecture. Parents believed that the world didn't wait to teach you, so neither would they. 3 times a week, on average, some kind of consequence played out. Maybe a toy was taken away for fighting with a sibling, or a favorite TV show was missed because chores weren't finished. There were no drawn-out explanations or second chances. The rule was simple. Your actions brought results, and you learned to think ahead. Discipline journals from the era show that the most common response to broken rules was the immediate loss of something valued, privileges, treats, or trust. This approach shaped kids to weigh their decisions carefully. Accountability started at home, and the message was clear. You controlled your choices, but you didn't control the outcome. That kind of discipline built a sense of responsibility that stuck, preparing children to respect boundaries, both their own and those of others. Walking into someone else's house in the 1970s came with its own set of rules, and every black child knew them by heart. The most important was simple. Don't touch anything that isn't yours. Before a visit, parents reminded their kids to keep their hands to themselves and their eyes forward. One former Philadelphia resident remembers the lesson all too well. At age 7, she reached out to touch a glass vase on a neighbor's coffee table, just one curious tap. The sound echoed, and within seconds, her mother's voice cut through the room. There was no waiting until they got home. The reprimand was swift and quiet, a look and a whispered warning that carried more weight than any lecture. Oral interviews from the era suggest that, on average, a child made just one such mistake a year before learning to follow the rules. Respecting other people's homes wasn't just about manners, it was about showing you were raised right no matter where you went. That expectation traveled with kids everywhere, shaping how they moved through the world. Discipline in black families during the 1970s was handled quietly, behind closed doors. Parents believed that correction was their responsibility, and that keeping it private protected a child's dignity and the family's reputation. Family logs from the time show a pattern. On average, 4 private talks a month were recorded for each child, while public scoldings were almost never noted. The idea was simple. Home was the place for lessons, not the grocery store or the school hallway. If a child broke a rule in public, the incident might be acknowledged with a look or a brief word, but the real conversation happened later, at home. This approach created a safe hierarchy. Children knew exactly where authority lived, and that discipline came from love, not humiliation. Parents understood that public embarrassment could follow a child for years, especially in tight-knit neighborhoods. By keeping correction within the family, they preserved trust and taught children that respect started at home and carried out into the world. In black households during the 1970s, Independence wasn't just encouraged, it was required. If a child tore a shirt at school, the first step wasn't to call for help. Instead, most kids tried to patch it themselves, sometimes with a needle and thread pulled from a kitchen drawer. Maternal diaries from the era describe a familiar pattern. Children were expected to make at least 2 honest attempts to solve a problem before asking an adult to step in. One diary entry from 1974 tells of a daughter who quietly mended her sleeve after snagging it on a fence, only bringing it to her mother when the patch wouldn't hold. This approach built more than just sewing skills. It taught kids to weigh their options, use their hands, and trust their own judgment. Parents wanted their children to know how to troubleshoot, to stand on their own feet, and to see asking for help as a last step, not the first. That mindset of self-reliance laid the groundwork for handling bigger challenges later in life. By the time a child turned 8 in a Black household in the 1970s, they usually had a daily list of responsibilities that didn't leave much room for excuses. Chore charts taped to refrigerator doors spelled out who swept the kitchen, who set the table, who took out the trash, who made beds, and who checked on younger siblings. 5 tasks a day was standard for even the youngest, one for each weekday afternoon: sweeping the porch, folding towels, rinsing dishes, feeding the family pet, and emptying the bathroom trash weren't up for debate. These jobs rotated, but the expectation never wavered. No one waited to be told twice. If a parent came home from a long shift and found a chore undone, the whole evening could change. Completing the list meant more than a clean house. It was proof that you could be trusted, that you understood your role, and that you were ready for bigger responsibilities down the line. This daily rhythm built a work ethic that lasted far beyond childhood. No child in the 1970s Black household ever forgot the rules about speaking to adults. The expectation was absolute. Answer with yes, sir, or no, ma'am. Keep your tone steady, and never, ever talk back. This wasn't just about manners, it was about survival. In New York City, juvenile arrest records from the mid-1970s reveal that Black youth who responded to police or authority figures with polite, measured answers were far less likely to be detained than those who challenged or questioned orders. Parents drilled this lesson at home, knowing that a single misstep could mean trouble far beyond a scolding. The NYPD's own data from 1975 shows Black teens faced arrest at nearly triple the rate of their white peers, often for minor offenses where attitude played a role in an officer's decision. Respect for adults wasn't up for debate. It was a shield, forged in a world where one wrong word could change everything. This lesson topped the list because, for many families, it was the first and last line of defense. Across all 25 lessons, one truth stands out. Black parenting in the 1970s was about equipping children for a world that demanded resilience, self-respect, and adaptability. These teachings weren't just survival tactics. They were blueprints for dignity and strength in uncertain times. Today, as culture and challenges evolve, the core need for these life skills remains. The real legacy is how these lessons still shape lives, families, and futures. Thank you for joining us in this sweet trip down memory lane. Please subscribe to the channel to support us and click here to watch another video.
Y'all think you know Black history because they gave you a watered-down month in February and a Martin Luther King quote on a poster. Man, they lied to your face. I'm about to show you 10 photographs that will completely shatter every sanitized story they fed you in school. These aren't feel-good moments. These are receipts that prove white America built its entire legacy on our backs, then had the audacity to erase us from the story. Welcome back to Black History in Photos, where we bring you the real, unfiltered truth they've been hiding in dusty archives hoping you'd never find it. Please subscribe to us and leave a like. This tells the algorithm we're building a movement they can't silence. Today, we're counting down 10 photographs that expose the lies, the violence, the theft, and the resilience that define real Black history. Not the version they teach, the version they buried. Let's start with the facts they conveniently forgot to mention. Every single photograph I'm about to show you exists in official archives. Library of Congress, National Archives, Schomburg Center. These aren't conspiracy theories or speculation. These are documented moments that white historians spent decades trying to hide or minimize. Each image represents a deliberate cover-up designed to protect white supremacy's fictional narrative about American progress. Photo number 10 takes us to Tulsa, Oklahoma in 1921. This image from the Library of Congress shows Greenwood Avenue before the massacre. Look at this photograph. The Dreamland Theater lit up like Broadway. The Stratford Hotel standing tall, owned by a black man who was wealthier than most white businessmen in the state. Luxury cars parked along streets lined with black-owned banks, newspapers, grocery stores, and law offices. This wasn't just a neighborhood. This was Black Wall Street, and it was more prosperous than most white communities in America. But here's what's going to make you furious. White folks couldn't handle seeing black people this successful. So on May 31st through June 1st, 1921, white mobs supported by local law enforcement and deputized citizens burned 35 city blocks to the ground. They dropped firebombs from airplanes. Read that again. They used aircraft to bomb American citizens on American soil because those citizens were black and successful. Over 300 people murdered, 10,000 left homeless, $35 million in property destroyed. And for 80 years, this massacre was erased from history books. This photograph captures black excellence at its peak, just hours before white terrorism destroyed it. They don't want you to see this image because it proves that segregation wasn't about separate but equal. It was about white people being terrified that black folks would outperform them when given the chance. Number 9 shows us the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom on August 28, 1963. This aerial photograph from the National Archives captures over 250,000 people gathered at the Lincoln Memorial. But here's what they don't tell you about this image. Look closely at the crowd composition. This wasn't just black folks marching. You see white clergy members, Jewish activists, labor union leaders, all standing together demanding economic justice. The mainstream narrative focuses on Martin Luther King's "I Have a Dream" speech, which is beautiful and important. But this photograph tells a different story. This was a march for jobs and economic freedom. The organizers, led by A. Philip Randolph and Bayard Rustin, were demanding a $2 minimum wage, which would be about $19 today. They were demanding an end to employment discrimination and federal job programs for the unemployed. White America sanitized this march and turned it into a feel-good moment about racial harmony while completely ignoring the economic demands. This photograph proves that the civil rights movement wasn't just about sitting at lunch counters. It was about economic power, and that's the part they erased from your textbooks, because they never intended to give us economic equality. Photo number 8 takes us to Little Rock, Arkansas in 1957. This image from the Library of Congress shows Elizabeth Eckford, one of the Little Rock Nine, walking to Central High School while a white mob screams at her. Look at Elizabeth's face in this photograph. She's 15 years old, wearing a handmade dress, carrying her books, and maintaining her dignity while grown white adults spit at her and threaten her life. But here's the part that's going to make you see red. The white girl screaming behind Elizabeth in this photo is Hazel Bryan. Years later, Bryan apologized, and they even took a reconciliation photo together. White media loved that story because it fit their narrative about progress and forgiveness. But what they don't tell you is that Bryan later admitted she only apologized to make herself feel better. And she eventually withdrew from the friendship because she couldn't handle the attention. This photograph captures the violence and hatred that black children faced just trying to get an education. Elizabeth had to be escorted by federal troops just to attend school. And white folks want to act like racism is ancient history when there are people alive today who were in that screaming mob. Number 7 shows the Tuskegee Airmen standing in front of a P-51 Mustang fighter plane in 1945. This photograph from the National Archives captures the most decorated fighter squadron in World War II. These black pilots flew over 15,000 sorties, destroyed over 250 enemy aircraft, and never lost a single bomber they were escorting. Never. That's a perfect record that no white squadron achieved. But here's what makes this photograph so powerful and so infuriating. These men were fighting fascism overseas while their families back home were living under Jim Crow fascism. They were risking their lives for a country that wouldn't let them drink from the same water fountains as white people. The military was still segregated. These pilots had to train at a separate facility in Tuskegee, Alabama, because white flight schools refused to train black aviators. Look at the pride and professionalism in this photograph. These men proved that black excellence could not be denied, even when the system was designed to destroy them. They came home as heroes and were still treated like second-class citizens. This image exposes the hypocrisy of American freedom and democracy. Photo number 6 takes us to Selma, Alabama, on March 7, 1965. This photograph from the Associated Press archives shows John Lewis and other marchers being beaten by Alabama state troopers on the Edmund Pettus Bridge. Look at this image. Grown men with badges and billy clubs attacking unarmed people who were marching for the right to vote. Tear gas filling the air. Blood on the pavement. This became known as Bloody Sunday. John Lewis's skull was fractured that day. Dozens of marchers were hospitalized. And here's what's going to make you furious. The bridge they were marching across was named after Edmund Pettus, a Confederate general and Grand Dragon of the Alabama Ku Klux Klan. They were being beaten on a bridge named after a Klan leader while trying to secure voting rights. The symbolism is so blatant it's almost cartoonish, except it's real and it's documented. This photograph proves that voting rights weren't given. They were beaten out of white supremacists who would rather crack skulls than allow black people to participate in democracy. And they want to act like voter suppression is a thing of the past when this happened less than 60 years ago. Number 5 shows Emmett Till's mother, Mamie Till Mobley, standing over her son's open casket in September 1955. This photograph from Jet Magazine archives is one of the most important images in American history. Mamie insisted on an open casket funeral so the world could see what white supremacists did to her 14-year-old son. Emmett's face was mutilated beyond recognition. He was tortured and murdered for allegedly whistling at a white woman, an accusation that Carolyn Bryant later admitted was a lie. Look at Mamie's face in this photograph. That's a mother's grief turned into revolutionary courage. She knew that hiding Emmett's body would let white America pretend this violence didn't exist. So she forced the world to look. Over 100,000 people attended the funeral. Jet Magazine published the photos, and the images sparked outrage that helped fuel the civil rights movement. But here's what makes this photograph even more devastating. Emmett's killers, Roy Bryant and J.W. Milam, were acquitted by an all-white jury despite overwhelming evidence. They later admitted to the murder in a paid magazine interview because they knew they couldn't be tried again. This photograph exposes the reality that black children could be lynched with impunity, and white juries would protect the murderers. Photo number 4 takes us to Birmingham, Alabama in May 1963. This photograph from the Birmingham Public Library archives shows children being attacked by police dogs and fire hoses during the Children's Crusade. Look at these images. Kids as young as 6 years old being knocked down by water pressure strong enough to strip bark off trees. German shepherds lunging at teenagers. Police officers smiling while they brutalized children. The Children's Crusade was organized because adult protesters were being arrested and losing their jobs. So the movement recruited students to march for desegregation. Over 1,000 children were arrested on the first day. Bull Connor, the Commissioner of Public Safety, ordered police to use dogs and fire hoses on the second day. The violence was so extreme that it shocked the nation and forced President Kennedy to intervene. This photograph proves that white supremacy had no limits. They were willing to attack children to maintain segregation. And these same people are still alive today, voting, holding office, and claiming they weren't racist. This image is a receipt that can't be denied. Number 3 shows the Black Panther Party's free breakfast for children program in Oakland, California in 1969. This photograph from the Oakland Public Library archives shows Black Panther members serving hot meals to children before school. Eggs, grits, toast, fresh fruit, and milk. By 1970, the Panthers were feeding over 20,000 children every morning across the country. But here's what they don't want you to know about this photograph. The FBI called this program one of the greatest threats to national security, not the Klan, not white supremacist terrorists, a program that fed hungry Black children. J. Edgar Hoover launched COINTELPRO operations to destroy the Panthers specifically because they were building community power through programs like this. Look at the care and organization in this photograph. This wasn't charity, this was revolution. The Panthers understood that you can't fight oppression on an empty stomach. They fed kids, provided free health clinics, and taught political education. White America couldn't handle Black people organizing to meet their own needs, so they criminalized the Panthers and assassinated their leaders. This photograph exposes the lie that the Panthers were just violent militants. They were community organizers who understood that survival programs were revolutionary acts. Photo number 2 takes us to the March Against Fear in Mississippi in June 1966. This photograph from the Library of Congress shows James Meredith lying on the ground after being shot by a white supremacist sniper. Meredith was marching from Memphis to Jackson to encourage Black voter registration when Aubrey James Norville shot him with a shotgun. Look at this image. Meredith on the pavement bleeding while people rushed to help him. But here's what makes this photograph so significant. Meredith survived and the march continued. Martin Luther King, Stokely Carmichael, and thousands of others joined to complete the march. This was when Carmichael first publicly used the phrase Black Power, which terrified white America because it rejected the politics of respectability and demanded self-determination. This photograph captures the violence that Black activists faced just for encouraging people to vote. Meredith was shot in broad daylight on a public highway, and his attacker only served 18 months in prison. This image proves that white supremacy used terrorism to suppress Black political power, and the justice system protected the terrorists. And our number 1 photograph shows Fannie Lou Hamer speaking at the Democratic National Convention in Atlantic City in August 1964. This photograph from the National Archives captures Hamer testifying about the violence she faced trying to register to vote in Mississippi. Look at her face in this image. That's righteous anger and unshakable courage. Hamer was a sharecropper who became one of the most powerful voices in the civil rights movement. She co-founded the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party to challenge the all-white Mississippi delegation at the convention. In her testimony, she described being arrested and beaten so severely that she suffered permanent injuries. She said, "Is this America, the land of the free and the home of the brave, where we have to sleep with our telephones off the hooks because our lives be threatened daily?" But here's what makes this photograph the most important on this list. President Lyndon Johnson was so threatened by Hamer's testimony that he called an emergency press conference to interrupt the live television broadcast. He didn't want white America to hear a Black woman tell the truth about American democracy. But the networks replayed her full testimony later that night, and millions of people heard her story. This photograph represents the power of Black women's voices in the freedom struggle. Hamer didn't have formal education, she didn't have wealth or political connections, but she had truth. And that truth was so powerful that the President of the United States tried to silence her. This image proves that Black women have always been the backbone of our liberation movements, even when they've been erased from the history books. So there you have it, 10 photographs that completely destroy the sanitized version of Black history they taught you in school. These images prove that Black folks built wealth and were terrorized for it. We fought for basic rights and were beaten for it. We organized our communities and were criminalized for it. We told the truth and were silenced for it. These photographs survived because somebody understood that visual evidence is harder to deny than written history. Somebody knew that future generations would need proof when white America tried to rewrite the story and claim that racism was exaggerated or that black people were treated fairly. The next time someone tries to tell you that black folks should just get over slavery and Jim Crow, show them these photographs. The next time someone claims that systemic racism doesn't exist, remind them that people in these images are still alive today. The next time someone acts like black anger is unjustified, show them children being attacked by dogs and fire hoses. These photographs are weapons against ignorance. They're proof against lies. They're evidence that can't be dismissed or minimized. Every image represents thousands of stories that were buried, thousands of people whose names we'll never know, thousands of moments of violence and resistance that weren't captured on film. But we have these 10, and these 10 are enough to change everything if you're willing to look at them honestly. These images prove that black excellence has always existed despite white supremacy trying to destroy it. They prove that black resistance has always been necessary because white violence has always been real. They prove that black survival is a revolutionary act in a country designed to eliminate us. Now let's do a moral audit because this is about more than just history. This is about justice and accountability. Scripture tells us in Amos 5 verse 24, "But let justice roll down like waters and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream." These photographs document the absence of justice. They show a nation that claimed to be a beacon of freedom while terrorizing its black citizens. The white mobs in these images, the police officers, the politicians who enabled them, most of them never faced consequences. They lived full lives, raised families, and died peacefully while their victims suffered permanent trauma. Where is the justice in that? Where is the righteousness in a system that protected white terrorists and criminalized black freedom fighters? But here's what I need my black family to understand. These photographs aren't just about pain and trauma. They're about resistance and resilience. Every image shows black people refusing to accept oppression, refusing to stay in their place, refusing to be silent. That's our legacy. Not victimhood, but resistance. Look at Elizabeth Eckford walking through that mob with her head held high. Look at the Tuskegee Airmen standing proud in front of their aircraft. Look at Fannie Lou Hamer speaking truth to power. Look at the Panthers feeding children. These are images of strength, courage, and determination that should make every black person proud. And here's the charge I'm giving you today. Don't let these photographs gather dust in archives. Share them, study them, teach them to your children. Use them to counter the lies that white supremacy continues to spread. These images are our inheritance, and we have a responsibility to protect them and amplify their truth. We need to demand that these photographs be included in every American history curriculum. We need to support the archives and institutions that preserve these images. We need to create new media that centers these stories instead of the sanitized versions that make white people comfortable. Most importantly, we need to connect these historical images to present-day struggles. The same systems that burned Black Wall Street are gentrifying our neighborhoods today. The same forces that beat marchers on the Edmund Pettus Bridge are suppressing votes today. The same government that tried to destroy the Black Panthers is still criminalizing black organizing today. These photographs aren't ancient history. They're blueprints for understanding current oppression. They're evidence that white supremacy adapts but never disappears. They're proof that black resistance must continue because the struggle isn't over. So the next time you see one of these images, don't just scroll past it. Stop. Look closely. Read the context. Feel the weight of what it represents. Honor the people who lived through these moments and commit yourself to continuing their fight. Y'all stay woke, stay angry, and stay committed to the truth. This is Vintage Black America, and we're not done exposing the lies they've been feeding us. Subscribe if you haven't already, and let's keep building this movement together. These photographs are our weapons, our proof, and our inheritance. And we're not letting them be buried ever again. Peace. Now let me tell you something else that's been eating at me while putting this together. White folks love to talk about how far we've come, how much progress we've made, how racism is basically over. But then you look at these photographs and you realize the people who were in those screaming mobs, the cops who beat children, the politicians who defended segregation, most of them are still alive. They're your neighbors. They're in Congress. They're voting in every election, and they never apologized, never faced consequences, never even admitted they were wrong. They just got old and respectable. And now their grandkids want us to forget what they did. Man, that's wild. You can't tell me to get over history when the people who made that history are still here, benefiting from it. And here's what really gets me. They took these photographs, these documented moments of white terrorism, and they buried them. Not because they didn't exist, but because they were too honest. They showed white America exactly what it was: violent, hateful, and terrified of black excellence. So they hid the photos, rewrote the textbooks, and fed us a story about gradual progress and good white people helping poor black folks. Lies. All lies. These photographs prove it. We didn't need white saviors. We needed white people to stop terrorizing us. And when we built our own wealth, our own institutions, our own power, they burned it down. Literally. With bombs and fire hoses and attack dogs. That's your American history. That's your land of the free. And they want us to be grateful? Nah. We're going to keep showing these photographs until every lie they told is exposed, until every sanitized textbook is thrown out, until every black child knows the truth about what their ancestors survived and what they built despite everything. This ain't just history. This is a warning. They did it before. They'll do it again if we let them. So we're not letting them. We're keeping these images alive. We're telling these stories, and we're making sure the next generation knows exactly what white supremacy looks like when it takes off its mask. That's our job. That's our responsibility. And we're not backing down. This is vintage Black America, and we're just getting started.
Prove to me that black people are and that they're going to take over, and I can open up the New York Daily News and show you white people who are their daughters, their husbands, their wives, their children, each other off. If a black man does something, it says, John Jones blacklist said black, 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 and did the black, black. Now, if a white man does it, it isn't white man Jones. It's just a man. Nondescript went out, his two daughters and his wife, and shot himself. Now, if he does that, then everybody seems to just either sympathize with it or let it go out the window. But if a black man does it, then any white can point his finger and say, see that? There they go again. Well, that isn't right.
I get up at 4 o'clock and get my breakfast done. Just at dawn of day, I go to the field and we pick cotton.
Mr. and Mrs. Haywood Jenkins of Sharkey County, Mississippi have, between them, picked cotton for over a century.
My boss man came along. He says, Ray Jane? I said, sir. Says, I say, when you wash? I said, I washed last night. He said, I don't want you to do that no more. That's my agent, you know. He says, every Friday morning or Friday evening, you wash. And let all the children stay there with you until you get through. When you get through, then y'all go back to field away. Now, the agents was mean, some of them. Some of them was mean. They want to hook the colored people. And that kind of white man come along. He says, hey, but you ain't in the field yet? He just had started plowing. He said, yes, I've just not got to eat my dinner. God damn it, you ain't doing a goddamn thing. Says, God damn it, I ought to take this damn stick and free the hell out you. He said, no, she said, if you free the hell out of me, goddamn, I free the hell out of you. Make me feel bad if I was under them, you know, how mean they was to treat us like that.
We gone?